What's going on, guys? It's PdubTV here. This is Justin Fandel.
And Riley Hunzus.
Today we're going to be talking about some interesting topics, some mandatory sports testing, some March Madness brackets, and some COVID-19 medical waste. So now we're going to cut over to our very own
Katie Freed.
With the world in an ongoing pandemic, health officials are finding ways for athletes to compete safely. One of these ways is bi-weekly mandatory COVID-19 testing for both school and club athletes. The tests are 15-minute rapid tests given to athletic associations by the MDHHS. Every athlete wanting to participate in that week's events has to have a negative COVID test. Unless they are participating in a contact sport without a mask, then they must have 3 negative COVID tests each week. At PW Middle and High School, testing occurs every Monday from 7 to 7:45 in the field house. The tests take 15 minutes, and if they're negative, the athletes can go to class after, but if they're positive, they need to go home and quarantine for 2 weeks. Now we'll hear from one of the PW spring sport athletes to see how COVID-19 testing has affected their academic environment and social environment.
So, since the COVID testing has started, I really haven't changed many of the things I do outside of school. I'm a little more careful on what I'm doing, make sure I'm wearing my mask right, but for the most part everything's about the same. I think quarantine has affected my academic performance greatly. I think it's affected a lot of other people too. I think being at home isn't a sufficient learning area like being in school. I think a positive test on the team wouldn't affect the baseball team too greatly, just because our coaches and all the players follow the COVID guidelines very well. We're always 6 feet apart and wearing our masks. But it would raise a red flag because with one person being tested, a lot of those people are my friends and it can get spread through other ways than just baseball.
After hearing the opinion and effects of mandatory COVID-19 testing from our own PW student athlete, it is important to note that mandatory COVID-19 testing will continue to take place per order of the MDHHS, so stay aware of your health and surroundings in order to help out your fellow student athletes and team. Thank you for listening.
So, we all know and remember what March Madness is, right? In case you don't, March Madness is an NCAA tournament where 68 teams compete against each other for a championship title, where 4 of those 68 are eliminated in the first round of the tournament, which is known as the first 4. Once these games are done, we are left with a field of 64 teams, which are separated into 4 regions with 16 teams in each region. Not only is it a tournament for a championship title, but it is an opportunity for people to make money by making a bracket and literally predicting the winner of every single game, the championship game winner, and also predicting an accurate final score of the game. Sounds fun, doesn't it? Now, you may be thinking, how hard is it to predict a perfect bracket? I mean, that cash prize must sound pretty nice, am I right? Well, good thing we have an interview with Mrs. Hess, who also teaches a statistics class.
The odds of having a perfect bracket would have to be easily 1 in a... If you were doing statistics not based on how good a team is, it would be like half to the 32nd power because there's however many games, right? But the issue is all the Cinderella stories and the upsets and stuff. The probability of, for example, Ohio State being beaten the first round was what, like 4%? So only 4% of brackets were perfect after that game. So it's actually a lot less. It's probably 1 in 500 million or something ridiculous. If it were a perfect world where every game were to end up as projected, then maybe. So the issue is like those upsets. It makes it pretty impossible to calculate and to actually be perfect. But the way that you're supposed to do it is, let's just say every team's a level playing field, right? 50% chance of winning. You would have a 50% chance for however many games. So there's 32 in the, well, there's the first 4, and then there's 32, so 36, and then plus 16 games, and then however many games there are, right, total, you would take 0.5 to that power. But then you have to take into account how many different combinations of right and wrong you would get. So yeah, it gets pretty complicated.
Now just to give a little more insight on a perfect bracket. The longest perfect bracket ever recorded in the history of brackets is held by Greg Nigel, which was established in 2019, and he correctly guessed the first 49 games, or in other words, he correctly predicted into the Sweet 16 until number 3 seed Purdue beat number 2 seed Tennessee in overtime, 99-94. So even though the chances are you become the first ever person to put together the first perfect bracket in history are basically impossible, still fun to try, right?
Now let's go over to Riley Hunzis with COVID-19 medical waste.
We are going to be talking about the negative outcome that safe materials have had on the environment.
Masks and gloves are being scattered around the streets. Littering is a crime and could lead to a $225 fine. This pollution is also affecting national parks. The Sleeping Bear Dunes are being polluted and are even being stolen from toilet paper and hand sanitizer. Since there are so many sanitizer wipes, gloves, and masks being littered, there are leaders in Keep America Beautiful that are trying to stop the littering and keep the environment safe by cleaning up messes made by products of the pandemic.
Now to Malachi.
I am a student janitor at PdubTV schools. I work every day for 2 hours before school.
Have you noticed an increase in littering?
Yeah, there's a lot of masks laying around.
How do you think it could be stopped?
People reuse their masks.
COVID-19 has restricted us from many things, including sporting events.
What's going on, guys? Some extra time, so we're giving you some more shots.